of the AIQRATE webinar specials, the CXO series. Today we have for you Anshu Sharma Raja. She is the Managing Director, Retail Banking Technology at the Standard Chartered Bank. And she'll be talking today about reimagining the digital transformation strategy, the emerging playbook. The session will be moderated by Dhanrajani, the CEO and co-founder of AIQRATE Advisory and Consulting. Before we start, I'll take you through a few housekeeping rules. I'd request you all to be on mute throughout the entire session. It helps everybody's listening and speaking experience. We will be taking questions during the entire session, but we will be answering them towards the end of the session. If you could please use the chat and Q&A panel in WebEx, relay the questions there, and I will relay them to Samir, who will take them up with Anshu. All right, I'd like to introduce Anshu right now. Anshu Sharma Raja is the Managing Director, Retail Banking Technology at the Standard Chartered Bank. Anshu is responsible for client data and origination technology for over 30 global markets. Anshu is a technology leader with over 23 years of experience with premier investment banks and technology firms, developing products, solutions, and leading global programs. She has been recognized as one of the top 10 influential data science leaders in 2017 by the Analytics India magazine. She also sits on the Wiley Advisory Council and has co-authored the Innovation Black Book for Exponential Technologies. Anshu, thank you so much for being here today. It's a huge honor to have you. I will now pass on the podium to Samir.
Thanks, Rohan.
Samir, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rohan, for the introductions, and Anshu, welcome to the AIQRATE webinar specials. I must admit, to begin with, the profile, what Rohan spoke about, does not do the justice. I know you from last few years, and you have that tons of, I would say, experience in terms of handling multiple streams of business and really kind of having that clear, very, I would say, elevated approach of how to manage the business. Maybe we'll try to kind of extract those nuggets of wisdom as we go along in terms of the session. But welcome to the session. Just to get the ball rolling, Anshu, I think COVID-19 has really thrown some unprecedented challenges, posed some queries, and looks like it will kind of really unsettle us in terms of really shaking up the inertia whatsoever we had from a corporate or personal side in terms of the outlook and the thinking. But straight to the point, purely as you see today, and you've been working on multiple geographies and you've handled a lot of large portfolios past on the technology, analytics, exponential technology side. What's the kind of winds of change you are seeing from an external marketplace and from a digital strategy perspective? What is that you see in terms of a very generic scenario of pivoting or navigating and really thinking about what digital agenda should be in the time to come?
Sure, Samir, thank you. Thank you for this. And I think it's a very, very pertinent and very topical question. As we are experiencing this firsthand, who would have thought in last 2 months, our lives and also the economy around us would completely change in India. While COVID was happening in January, we all thought it's all happening in Asia, in far off lands. We were all monitoring it or watching it as a piece of news item, but didn't know that it will affect each one of us personally as well as professionally as well. So definitely strong winds of change. I would say turbulence of all kinds, of course. Right from the petrol and the gas prices crashing to auto sales touching a zero. It has never ever happened in the history of automobile industry in India. Maruti not selling a single car in the month of April because of course they couldn't, and so on. So it has been completely and none of us were prepared for it, honestly, right? But some of the things that have happened, some of the things are very apparent to us, right? Things that we are seeing, the digital adoption has significantly gone up. For example, people are spending on an average about 5 to 6 hours on their smartphones, doing various kind of things, but suddenly that adoption has gone up. Earlier on, you would have to sell a digital agenda to your customers, saying that yes, this could be a potential stream of revenue, but now it turns out this is the only stream of revenue. If you're not on the digital platform, guess what? You are in a lockdown, and you are not able to sell or transact or anything. But if you had a digital connect with people, at least you can build a pipeline, even if you're not able to fulfill the orders unless you're a grocer. But you're able to create a pipeline and fulfill. So it's no longer about dragging people and convincing people on to come to the digital platforms and saying, yes, you should start adopting this and you should start taking this seriously. But now, as it turns out, this is the only platform. So, for example, for us as a bank as well, our branches shut down for most of the locations across the world because of COVID. We didn't have staff, and of course, for security and safety reasons as well, we were operating on very, very small time frame that we are opening the branches for very critical transactions only. But our digital adoption of people transacting online has significantly gone up. So earlier, you would have to run contests and campaigns and so on to get people onto your digital modes. But now, as we see, so those are some of the winds of change. Every day, I mean, for example, what AIQRATE, what you guys are doing, right? Earlier, you would have to host, a meeting of people, etc. But now, it's all digital, and we are all coming together to kind of share our experiences and so on. So, and people are joining, people are coming, because that's the only medium now that is working. So it's no longer about having an alternate medium. Digital now is the front and center. So that is, to me, the strongest change that has happened in the behavior. People have gotten comfortable, etc. To me, I can draw a parallel to somewhat to when the demonetization happened in India. Suddenly, people became comfortable transacting online, sending money to each other online via Paytms and even other online media, because it was just so difficult to get cash around in the first few weeks of demonetization, if you remember. Of course, this is much more severe and far more complex what we are going through today. But this has also thrown a great opportunity. It has completely now served digital on a platter. The digital agenda is no longer somebody has to go in a sales meeting and convince the CIOs or the CXOs today to invest more. The investment is already happening and will continue. So that, to me, is one of the strongest winds of change. Of course, other than all the behavioral changes, etc., that we are seeing at the moment.
Super. So what I take digital now, and certainly coming from you, your comment around acceleration on the digital agenda seems to be a good comforting factor for many of the global audience, I must say. But let me also do a follow-up. As you rightly said, look, clients or stakeholders, organizations, GCCs now will look seriously in terms of going digital. Having said that, as a follow-up, Anshu, and I want to pick up your insights over there, when we talk about acceleration, digital acceleration is not new. We've been talking about this and even talking about maturity, the whole aspect of kind of really taking a very concerted effort. Now, this also means when we talk about taking digital maturity to the next level, which is purely from an implementation adoption, it will involve some serious, solid benchmarks.
Absolutely.
And while it existed, many of the firms came out with their own set of metrics, quadrants, but I think this will also spawn many new kind of, let's say, modeling frameworks. From a vantage point where you are, what is that you're seeing and what is that you're trying to capture over there, please?
Sure. No, absolutely. Like I said, that if digital is no longer your alternate media, it is now your front and center. It is now your primary source of income. Whether you're a bank, whether you are an Amazon, sort of a grocer, or whether even you are, an SME who's selling even things like farm to table, for example, right? What this COVID situation has also brought out is so many other small entrepreneurs, stroke people who otherwise could not connect to the wider audience, but digital has given them a very, very, very wide platform and exposure without really having to spend money. So it depends, irrespective of whether you are a super large company or whether you are, somebody who's growing grapes outside of Bangalore and wants to bring a 2000 kg truck and sell out his produce and using the digital medium. This is happening. The benchmarks you absolutely rightly said. So, what it does is it puts stress on your digital systems. I don't think beyond, if you were a pure play digital company like an Amazon, for example, you did not really invest enough in the digital platform for sizability, for scalability, and also for stress testing your digital systems, for example. Again, for us in the bank, the amount of footfall or the amount of eyeballs and the transactions we have seen in our digital channels has grown significantly. It's the traffic we have seen is grown 6 times, if not more. And that means that we have to suddenly divert a lot of investment in strengthening that platform. The growth
6 times you said? That's phenomenal.
6 times. We run digital campaigns earlier on. The kind of volumes that would come on those campaigns to what it is coming now is over 6 times. So which means that those benchmarks of the growth that you had projected to happen in 2 years' time or 3 years' time on your digital platform is happening now. Which also means that your other platforms, are not going to grow. And the way the things are looking up right now, we are in for a permanent reset. We are in for a complete change of behavior. The way we travel, the way we eat, the way we looked at hospitality, the way we worked, the way we would go to work, etc., and everything. So this is going to be a permanent change. This is going to be a reset that we are looking at, and to strengthen that, to make sure that what you were thinking of achieving 3 years from now has already happened. How do you sustain that? And how do you continue to monetize that? How do you build new business models that would monetize and that would be pivotal to your digital strategy? I think those are some of the benchmarks that are being revised as we speak, and you are seeing that every day. For example, I'm waiting for the time when the government lifts the lockdown on non-essential e-commerce traffic, and then you see, right? Because people are eager to shop. People have for the last 2 months, and that's the general behavior of people. So you would see that they would start going out. I mean, while they will not step out, hopefully, but they would start. The e-commerce suddenly would definitely go. That's what I'm thinking. Would happen. That's what perhaps I would do. Right? There are things that I want to get, and it's not only because you're tired. You're really tired of buying just the necessary groceries and all the necessary items and stuff like that. And that's the behavior we just saw yesterday. And of course, that was a liquor case. But we just saw when India opened, the stores for liquor. You saw that how the queues were. Again, it is also throwing up new opportunities and new business models, right? I mean, somebody could run a liquor delivery service on a digital platform and get it door delivered to you. I don't think people would mind paying premium for that rather than having to go out and stand. We've seen delivery services like Dunzo who are completely digital, platform aggregators, of course, but they've been able to continue to provide their services, and they're not really looking at laying off people and so on. But they need more and more. Grocery stores across the world, for example, Tesco in the UK, looking to hire 7,500 people. And they are looking to hire more because their supply chain needs to be strengthened. And the entire technology shop for Tesco is run out of Whitefield in Bangalore, and they are looking to hire more and more people because the scale and expansion is significant, including people in their call centers and so on. So I think this is. While of course it's a pretty sad situation we are going through, there is opportunities emerging. There are new business models emerging, new benchmarks set, and new audience suddenly that has cropped up. People who went to a gym, who didn't do an online, who could never think that they could do an online yoga or an online Zumba class and things like that. Now, of course, it's all going free, but over time, I'm sure these would all get commercialized and monetized, and they should. And that's where I say that new sets of new opportunities of doing business are emerging and would get cemented.
Great. So if I take what you said and you painted a broad brush in terms of retail CPG set of segments, and certainly as you said about the opportunities, which are first what we could see as part of the green shoots, which are definitely encouraging, but there'll be also some kind of a new opportunity areas which will emerge. Now, over there, Anshu, if I just dovetail what you said, now the fact over there is that digital has been there for quite some time, and uh, organizations, enterprises have been talking about this transformation largely, oh, let's get it done, let's implement these new technologies. But there has always been these facets around CXOs saying, look, you also need to kind of we need to bring in a digital mindset or a culture. Having said that, this relates to or cascades to really transforming the organization, business models, processes, and operations, which is not a kind of an easy thing. Which, I mean, you've worked with banks, telecom, insurance firms, and all. These are large, iconic kind of, let's say, organizations, the brands where you work. Now, what's the biggest inertia if I start purely from a challenge? What comes at a board or a CXO level when it comes to adopting a digital savvy culture?
It's very interesting. The way you mentioned that, yes, it was always, the call was that people need to adopt a digital mindset, etc. One is called adoption, when the choice is given to the people. The other is the necessity. In today's day and age, and it has all happened to us, right? So there was this very funny meme that was going around amongst all the coronavirus memes. But the one that we all will relate to is who was responsible for the digital transformation of your company, whether it was the CIO, CEO, or coronavirus. And out, it was the coronavirus, right? Because it pushed you to start looking
It was
at
the performance appraisal of many of the CXOs.
because
Yeah.
it pushed you to start looking at possibilities. For example, the bank's call center could never work out of home, but now it is. And likewise, at for so many for so many things that you otherwise thought that I need people to start aligning to it, but people were already aligned to it. Now in this kind of a situation. So I think the conversation that's happening at the CXOs and the board levels now is how do we sustain that? Now that we have, and I'm not only talking about the work from home arrangements, but now that people are comfortable on the digital platforms, now that people are comfortable, buying and selling and transacting and learning and and so on, how do we sustain that, and how do we ensure that we are able to monetize it and not go back to our old ways, which I don't think we will, but not go back
Just
to our
one point over there. I'm just chiming in, Anshu. Now, there is also this structural aspect you rightly said about people getting comfortable, consumer demand kind of getting adopted to a new kind of set of change digitally. But organizations have invested in brick and mortar businesses. There are large capex which have happened, and whether it's about the factories or the workplaces, there is an investment on the sunk capital which is coming. What happens to that when we talk about, and I'm just trying to also correlate in terms of some insights coming from you post-COVID scenario on this particular aspect as well.
Sure. So yeah, those are tough situations at the moment, right? There are industries, who are generally factory and brick and mortar oriented. Even services industries, for example, travel and hospitality. I mean, you and I know how much we travel, but we haven't set foot out, and what it means. And so, if you were to make my trip, I can imagine the kind of conversations they must be having internally, and even the large hotel chains, right? So, for example, the large hotel chains are also looking at alternate models. Some very fancy restaurants are also looking at alternate models of, providing an app where you can order and you get all their favorite dishes. For example, the dal makhani and the mutton from Bukhara comes to your doorstep, not as a delivery, but sort of you mix the ingredients and you kind of make it yourself. I mean, all these kind of thoughts are happening because they have to come up with alternate possibilities or alternate business models. For example, the restaurants, the famous restaurants at some of the top hotel chains are thinking, can we bring your favorite food to home? But then, of course, you also have to realize that you don't always go to a 5-star to dine for their food, but it's also for the ambience and just the setup there. So I think those industries are very, very hard hit at the moment. The government is trying to do things. I also know that the government is trying to, but at the same time, that is not the highest priority for them at the moment. But you would see a digital wave there as well. There would be definitely some tangent, if not parallel business models that would emerge, but they would definitely emerge because business would not go back to normal. So I think it is definitely very tough for automobile sort of industry, very tough for, I have a lot of friends who are, small, medium enterprise owners who run factories in say, Noida and Delhi and outskirts of, India, for example, who are in the plastic business or the polymer business, or they supply parts to some of the businesses. So while they are able to produce, but their consuming business is suffering. So the whole supply chain right now is broken, and with the governments around the world also trying to ease lockdown, but they're not all easing it out together. So even if your business starts, but your consumer is not ready to start, so you can keep uh, supplying, but there's nobody to consume. So unless the whole chain starts, you would see that stress at least for some more time till the entire chain gets energized.
Sure. No, I think that's a good point. So shifting gears, Anshu, and I want to take a different facet from a conversation perspective, and I'm also mindful of the steady stream of questions which are coming in. So I'll take a couple of them after this particular question. Now, think over there, if we really look at, there's a great set of innovation which has happened on the capabilities, service offerings, consulting side from many of the large digital players, providers. They came out with their own set of solutions, product, and offerings, and pretty much every one of this consulting large bellwether IT organization created their own digital infrastructure of providing that to clients, GCC, SMBs. What happens to that with this change? You rightly said that there are new models emerging, there are new kind of mechanisms, benchmarking coming in. One, what is that they need to do from their own side to kind of cater to a new demand? Second, does that mean also they will also pivot in terms of what they offer today and completely kind of, let's say, rehashing the whole thing in terms of their offerings, or there is a mid path over there? And I'm taking a very generic approach because it could be a kind of, let's say, GCC looking at their own, or a consulting company, or a IT organization.
Yeah. But I think on the top of the mind, everybody's top of the mind space right now is getting less and less people dependent. I would equate it to automation. It's not about only automation, but it is about customer centricity, because today you don't have FaceTime with your customer. Today you don't have the kind of relationship building, because most businesses, even whether it's a financial business or any kinds of business, is about customer touch points and customer loyalty. So you don't have that, but you also need to simplify. You also need to bring down your costs. Those pressures continue. So things like AI ops, for example, leveraging AI in your operational world, and it is not equivalent to RPA. We all know that. It's not about just implementing RPA, but it is about intelligently solving some of these problems. I think those are some of the, if the consulting companies can adopt a mindset of providing a problem statement and providing a solution to that, rather than the conversation being about the size of the business and how many people can I deploy and things like that. I think those are anyway obsolete conversations to have. But I think it's about solving for a problem, and solving for a problem not by throwing 100 people at it, but solving for a problem by throwing technology at it. And technology is available today, and building a service-oriented model. I think subscription-based models are here to stay, because everybody's comfortable, getting more and more comfortable with it, right? We've seen the cloud adoptions go up. We've seen because that's the kind of resiliency that you could offer, and so on. So some of those other intangibles of some of these offerings are now coming out. So I think for consulting companies and software service providers, if you will, my thought is that attack and find a niche problem, that either is existing today or you foresee it could happen, and then you solve for it. And again, not by throwing people at it, but it's about throwing technology.
Great, great. So identify a niche problem and go about solving that, maybe with a new approach or maybe with a new solution or a kind of consulting-led orientation. Great.
Because I think
So,
those baggages and those mind blocks have completely vanished, right? People, they don't even question that if this is not a possibility. Everything is possible today. I mean, because we've seen that we've broken all the stereotypes of of industry norms and everything else. So everybody is working remotely, but the business are going ahead, things are going on, etc., etc. So we've seen that things are possible. It's no longer organizational, reservation stroke constructs are no longer the roadblocks.
So part of the question also, Anshu, which has come in, and I also had this, while great to see that kind of a roadmap in terms of faster acceleration of digital. Having said that, there is always this perennial question, which has also come in as part of a couple of audience throwing that question: privacy, the whole piece around data regulation. Digital kind of, let's say, awareness is good, but whether it's government, enterprises, stakeholders, everyone gets concerned. And some of the recent incidents also threw some of these kind of issues at large, where we still have those malwares, phishing, cyber attacks happening. What's your viewpoint while organizations look at charting out a new kind of, let's say, trajectory on digital adoption? What is that they can do to bolster the whole privacy, regulation, compliance part on that?
Yeah, so cyber is an absolute. It was always, and I think it will continue till the time we are all digital. There'll be new things coming up that will threaten us, and there'll be new things that will need to fix it. So cyber continues to be an absolute topmost priority. I think, if not more, digital, but the same amount of investments the companies put in cyber and combating that and making sure that your environment is safe. And we've seen that in the past, right? Even with this, we saw the incidents that happened with a company like Zoom. Suddenly, everybody was using Zoom. Of course, there were enterprises that were using Zoom, but now everybody, for their personal, private, all kinds of professional conversations, Zoom was being used, and then there were all these leakages, etc., of user credentials and so on. So yes, cyber continues to be a very, very hot area, and I think
that's your point. You rightly said Cognizant got just
absolutely
got into a major kind of a, let's say, cyber attack. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. So the more digital we go, I mean, these are some of the guardrails that we have to keep holding on to, and only keep continuously improving, because it is a moving target. You can never say I'm 100% cyber safe. So yes, absolutely. So cyber.
We need to hold on to the guardrails. I mean, absolutely good point. Now, the obvious thing, Anshu, we talked about strategically in terms of digital transformation, more about the whole aspect about brick and mortar coming with a new lease of life, with the new transformation and some of the facets around technologies. I want to shift towards also a set of questions which have come in. It's about this: what happens to this talent landscape and digital? Now, on that side, when we talk about talent landscape, we've got GCC players who absorb and deploy digital talent. We've got third-party or kind of service providers, and we've got startup and niche boutique firms. Now, from purely sitting at the level where you see, I mean, a lot of these digital transformation agendas getting implemented, and you see a lot of kind of teams with you and around you working. What is that piece of suggestions you want to give in terms of now professionals stepping up the game, whether it's skills or competencies on the digital side? What's your piece of advice to them?
Upskilling, absolutely upskilling. What got you here will definitely not take you in the post-COVID world. Absolutely not. So absolutely upskilling and adopting that digital mindset. Upskilling, when I say, it's not just about learning a bit of Python or learning a bit of mobile coding, etc., etc. It's just not that. But it is about understanding how things work in a digital world, turnaround times, and when you build software applications or enterprise software, build for scalability, build for performance, have a full stack mindset, etc. So some of these things are now native to the digital world. I mean, nobody's gonna give you a performance requirement that my turnaround time needs to be a sub-second. That needs to be already thought into your design itself. It should not be an afterthought, for example. So I think those kind of skills and having a digital mindset, the first step of a digital is self-service, right? Everything needs to be self-service. Give the control in the hands of the customer or the consumer. Whether you are a Netflix, whether you're watching Netflix, or whether you are even using or charging your own, cellular plan or anything like that. You see, the best applications are that they give the control in the hands of the customer, or at least the perceived control. Of course, the control is all back with you, but at least a very perceived control. So I think thinking of those, thinking on lines of digital journeys as against just an app or a suite of apps and so on, and also integrating with a wider ecosystem. We are all living in an API world, especially open APIs and so on. So integrating with the wider network, providing platforms or building digital platforms. I think those kind of things, because the problem statements are plenty and available, and they would be permanent problem statements, right? For example, how do you enable the restaurant ecosystems or the pubs ecosystems, that at least in Bangalore was very popular, etc. People are not going to go out and hang out there anymore, but how do you get them bootstrapped onto a digital platform and things like that?
Great. Upscaling, and you rightly said, problems will remain in terms of the shape and the contours, how they are kind of demonstrated today, but maybe the new talent workforce will have to adopt and also say, look, there is a new way to solve these problems. And you rightly said about this experience of restaurants kind of a thing, that how the new experience on a digital side can be provided. Great. One aspect we haven't touched, Anshu, is about technologies. A conversation around digital transformation cannot be completed without technologies. And often, this is like what we say digital transformation, where it's about a confluence, constellation of multiple new age technologies. You get these technologies, put them in a cloud environment, whether it's a native, hybrid, or on-prem, put kind of a sandbox environment in terms of building APIs, microservices, and you will have some magic going. First of all, is it true? I mean, and I'm just building a kind of a layman picture. Second, what's the kind of, let's say, trajectory or a kind of a curve we would see on these digital technologies? Are they something which, or rather, is it more emphasized in terms of technology game, or we are somewhere losing that whole art of business problem when we talk about digital transformation?
So my personal view is this, and I'm not a tools person, or I'm rather a problem solver person. So I don't get hung up on, and that's how my technology journey has been. When I started my career, I was programming in C, and just last month I created an app on, for a travel company that I was just mentoring, a mobile version. So so I've seen the technologies, and then that I did in my free time, for example. So so personally, I'm not hung up, and that's even when I'm hiring people, I prefer not hiring people or not preferring people to who are hung up on a certain technology, because technology changes so fast. So I think that having that problem-solving mindset, and of course you need to have technology, you need to learn some of these tools in your tool, you have that in your arsenal, but to have the problem-solving mindset is more important, I feel. To find how would you solve for something is more important than just chasing, saying I'm going to go this 3-month crash course and get certified in a certain technology. Of course, that is important too, but the fundamentals need to be there of problem solving. The technology suite, depending on which industry and what problem you're solving for, is very, very varied. And of course, there are also these other peripherals. So again, the whole sexy and cool thing used to be to build application, but right now the focus on things like service reliability engineering, They focus on performance management, of applications and performance. There is so much scope there. Just the whole data engineering world itself is so how would I say, so devoid of people who are who can really solve for some very very serious data challenges. And in the digital world, it's only going to grow, because when you build applications, you also have to look at scalability. You don't want to be out there and your site comes crashing down and so on. And of course, we've seen that happen to the largest of the largest players. I still remember when Flipkart came out with their billion-day campaign, and within 2 hours, their site and their app was crashing. In a way, that's it takes your valuations up as well, because there is so much traffic that you can prove. But again, so those are some of the things that you got to also in the technology space. Those are the areas which are not very glamorous, but they are very very important and very very foundational to your digital success.
Great. So I'm just lumping a couple of questions which have come in, Anshu. This is about banking. Now, we realized today, and you started your conversation in terms of some of these changes, what banking is going through. Now, particularly from a digital transformation side on the banking segment, what is the new curve, or what is the new set of trend or kind of line of sight you see how banks will look into digital transformation in the time to come? And this is more about post-COVID, post kind of this epidemic scenario.
Yeah, so my view is that it's going to go completely digital right now, and perhaps and not just banks. I think most organizations are also revisiting their real estate strategy. Do we really need such huge, large corporate structures that we've created? So the branch network for a bank would, over time shrink, and the uptake of digital banking is going to go up significantly. For example, we in Standard Chartered Bank, we have in Ivory Coast only digital branch or digital bank rather. There is no branch; it's completely digital. There is no employee, if you will, in that branch. Similarly, in Hong Kong and Singapore, the governments have given out digital banking licenses to various banks, including one of us as well. And so those would emerge. Even if we don't get to 100% digital, but the footprint of physical branches would definitely come down, because people don't really need to, and they would get more and more comfortable with that. And also with all this integration, right? Today your UPI is connected to your bank account, the Google Pay is connected to your bank account, so you don't really. So it's not like a wallet that you need to carry or a Paytm sort of a wallet. So it's all kind of consolidating and coming together. For financial companies, to be able to, security is going to be the top-notch concern, to be able to transact in the most secured manner, and to connect to the multiple ecosystem or multiple things that today exist would be of how soon can they get onto that? Because it's no longer a question of if you need to get on to that ecosystem, but it's a question of when you're getting onto that ecosystem.
Great. So one of the questions which has come in, Anshu, and there are two on this, and I'm again consolidating, this global capability centers. I mean, that's a great set of, I would say, new wave which has come in terms of GCCs getting set up in India. And there's already a kind of a large base for GCCs out here. From a digital transformation perspective, what is the future you see for GCCs? Would the agendas of digital transformation will be defined out here, carried in terms of implementation, or you would see that happening from parent organizations and it would be more of, let's say, the execution or the implementation now?
I think the former, actually, especially, so again, if you look at most of the GCCs, a lot of their back office, or rather all of their back office is in countries that are called low cost and high value locations. So right, so in Asia, for example, East Europe, India, of course, and so on. And this is where, and so now what this has also shown out is that these centers now have a seat at the table to define the strategy, because they know best how they are able to operate. And they have demonstrated that they don't need to be micromanaged. They have demonstrated that they don't need to be, in a tight shift, 8-hour shift or a 10, 12-hour shift that used to be. Because we've all seen, how those operation centers, etc., operate, right? That sometimes, you also, and the clean rooms, etc., that was required. We have not come across a single security breach or a breach of, data breach or any of that sort. Of course, technology is important. You have to have your VPNs and your basic hygiene and so on, the way you connect to your infrastructure. But I think this is an opportunity, if it's not already happening, for the GCC leaders in some of these locations to kind of get a seat at the table and come up with a strategy of how they can continue to do business and do more with this situation emerging.
So do you anticipate continuing the same thing on the GCCs, maybe new models of digital transformation centers getting into the picture, or it will be more like a new set of talent being kind of roped in by GCCs? What will be the new wave over there?
I think it's going to be all of that, what you said, and also additionally, a lot more knowledge-based work kind of, coming along, because, you've already crossed that, you've already created that trust. So anyway, all along the GCCs were operating, they were being measured by metrics, SLAs, and all of that stuff, KPIs and everything else. But, I know for sure that every GCC also asked for more and more, how can I do more? But it was always about, do this, show us this, and then, we will think about it. But I think that hesitation, and that's what I call the seat at the table. Now you can go and demand, saying, I have demonstrated in the lowest of the times that we've continued, this momentum, we've been able to mobilize people, etc. And it was not easy. I'm sure for most companies to get all their staff working from home was not easy. But all of that has done. So I think it's also kind of now proving that I'm ready to kind of, get on the next course.
Wonderful, wonderful. So one of the questions, Anshu, and this is something I also had. Now, in the context, while you completely laid down the whole contours in terms of the new wave of digital transformation, the great reset you talked about, and also how the adoption of technologies will happen, there is this thing around the playbook now. Now, if you have to take top 3 strategic focus area for a digital transformation, top 3 strategic areas, one, what that would be, and if you talk about those 3 areas, how does it impact the whole adoption piece in terms of accelerating that?
Okay. So if I think of 3 things, that will be completely, the strategic make or break. One is thinking of new business models, right? Think completely digital. Do not think hybrid. A lot of times when we solve, we also say, no, but there is also this population. Don't solve the problem digitally for them. I mean, maybe the problem still exists for them, but completely emerging of new business models. And I gave examples of the hospitality industry and so on. Education industry, for example. I mean, schools will continue. Now, would you justify paying, whatever school fees we all used to pay for our children, because they would not do these, they would not have the playgrounds to go and play, they would not have the auditoriums. The schools charged you a fee because of the amenities that they had and the kind of exposure they gave to your child and so on. But if your child is cooped up in a room with a Zoom screen on, would you still want to pay that kind of fee? So alternate mechanisms would come. You would still want your child to learn piano. You would still want your child to learn ballet and everything else. But all these, so alternate business models are bound to come. They are bound to come, and they will thrive. So now the point is to get ahead of them. So that's one. The second is, also tied to that is the revenue streams. So is subscription based the best model? Is it, one time? How do you generate that, and how do you ensure stickiness in those models? And sustainability would be, my third take. That, earlier on in the conversation, I said that, we've all seen some of the ice completely breaking about digital transformation. Those inhibitors are gone now. But how do you sustain that momentum and not let it go back to, how we used to be? is would be the third thing that I would say. So basically, emergence of new business models, looking at new revenue models tied to these, and sustainability.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think these are three great set of, I would say, almost a playbook kind of a thing in terms of strategic focus area. Last question, Anshu, which is something so well resonating in today's topical scenario, is the thing around now. Having said that, what happens to humanity? Adoption of digital automation, this whole thing around humanoid cyborgs. Uh, what is that we are talking about in the time to come for millennials, Gen Z kind of a thing? Are we talking about a very different set of world? And this is more of a kind of a utopian and more of a kind of a different level of question. But since I started, I wanted to take that just to break the monotony as well. What is that new world going to be in 2030, 2035? If you're talking about with all these facets of technologies, new business model and a new kind of a, let's say, way of, what is that your it's like Anshu Sharma's kind of 2035 vision.
So I'm not, honestly, I'm an old-fashioned person. I like people interactions. I thrive on it. That gives me a lot of energy. And sometimes, honestly, I'm feeling drained because I'm getting tired of, just all the meetings being online and so on. I'm not able to, just sit with my friends, colleagues, and so on. So I think that human element you can never take out. You can never take out of the equation. You can never take out. Will technologies advance so much that you're able to kind of pass on those human emotions out? Just the way robotics has really kind of advanced. I'm not sure, but I think if whatever you do, even whatever you do commercially, you have to have the humans in the center, in the center of it. I think that would be a successful formula. Fast forward to 2030, 2035, I would still imagine people are connected to each other. People are traveling. People are looking forward to meeting with each other. People are looking for that human touch and the energy that we derive from each other in a more human way rather than in an electronic manner. Right? Of course, as we speak, as we know of it, 5 years back or 10 years back, the last 10 years, most conversations have now shifted to a Facebook or a social media platform. When you meet somebody, you no longer want to inquire about them because you've seen everything that they've been doing. So you just don't even feel that you're meeting them for after a long time, etc. It takes an emotional toll. I don't think too much of technology is great. It does take an emotional toll. Sometimes you need to, and that's why you now have business models that allow you digital detox and so on. So I think humans are very smart, and I'm sure we will find our ways. But that human connect, to my mind, is supreme, and the energy we derive from each other. Yeah.
Fantastic. Digital detox is the one I think we need to practice at some point of time. Anshu, it's been fascinating. I think a very riveting, engrossing, a very kind of indulging conversation, because good part was that you touched upon holistically the areas which often are not discussed in terms of industry segments like restaurants or hospitality, travel kind of a thing, because we are usually fixated with the large ones, be it telecom, financial services, and the banking or the insurance. Having said that, you also kind of reflected upon very truthfully in terms of what are the emerging challenges, what are the areas, what needs to be evolving in terms of a digital roadmap from a maturity, acceleration, adoption perspective, and also blended that very beautifully with anecdotal examples in terms of how industry relates to that. Pleasure talking to you. Really kind of a, let's say, pleasure hosting you on this session, and thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Sameer. Thank you so much. And I think the questions that came were very pertinent, and I'm sure there are a lot more. And I think the topic is very close to my heart. I live and breathe that every day. So yes, just trying to be as honest as I can be. Thank you so much.
You demonstrated that 100%. Thank you so much. Thank you all the audience. Thank you everyone.